For the people, election is like a one-day festival. From next day, they start to complain about it. That is the problem. Understand that they can change it. Vote for that person who talks about economy, who understands the nuances and the nuts and bolts of the economy. I mean, the same people for 20 years are there doing nothing, and they are voting. Why do you vote on? Isn't KP Oli elected by these same voters? Isn't Sher Bahadur or Prachanda or Upendra Yadav, name anybody, is voted by this? Why did they vote? While voting, they should have at least visualize their future, that okay, by putting one stamp, they are betting their future.
The second day of the Gen Z movement, a lot of industrialists were kind of targeted. Bishwanath Paudel's allowance was somehow in the trending parts of the media where people criticized him.
If you try to make system transparent, functional, and credible, there always be sort of resentment, and there will be people who try to corner him or criticize him.
Durga Prasad said, we need to reduce the interest up to 5%. All the loans below 20 lakhs should be kept off.
Writing off any loan without parameters overnight collapse the banking system. I've said 200 times in my interview, at least to be a member of parliament, you have to be a graduate. To be a minister, you should at least be a master's degree holder. The contemporary knowledge he or she should possess.
The quality podcast we provide you takes a lot of time, energy, and money. So if you guys could please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button, would mean a lot. Thank you.
First of all, let's talk about the young rebellion this time. Say last 4 or 5 years in my many of the interviews, I have continuously expressed my worry that the younger generation is not taking interest into Nepal's politics.
Okay.
The deteriorating system.
Okay.
Even the revolution, I was doubtful that there would be a revolution, there would be a revolt. So, because what happens in any country's future, when the aspirations of the young is not met, they are likely to revolt. There are a change in the system. I was a bit taken aback, but this rebellion happened, and I think it was organically developed within the society. It was cooking within the society, and it got expressed. That's the first point. Second, in my other interviews as well, I said the young people who aspired for change failed to delineate their genuine revolution and the criminalization part of it, which is the biggest danger despite this Gen Z revolution. Because there is a group that is likely to put everything in one basket and blame the Gen Z for all the destruction, which is not. And there is another group who caused this violence, havoc, destruction, is sort of in fear-mongering. See how dangerous we are. We can do anything. This can happen again kind. So when you talk about the reform in the system, I think that is not going to help. This is the moment we need to have an informed opinion, informed decision. So that is for now. That is how I see the current situation. When we talk about a system, we are talking mainly 3 major aspects, the components of the system. First is the politics. When we say politics, generally, as you mention in your brief note, that it should be a public service. So the key word is service. So if going beyond, if it becomes the profession, then the ability of politics to solve the national problems, societal problems and economic problems becomes less effective. Because people are more caring about their profession, saving their profession. So it is no more a service. Now, going beyond that, it has become a sort of a business, profit-making business. Being into politics is earning the fastest earning channel without being capable of earning that. That is exactly where I want to relate to your question. 3 major things have taken out from the main national discourse. Your capability. When you say capability, there are 2 things combined. One is your formal training, qualification, university degrees, and your own creativity. The responsibility given in the parties, responsibility given in the public institutions, capability is not the prime priority, the major priority of giving these jobs, selecting these jobs and giving responsibility of it. That's the first, is the capability. Second is the integrity. Integrity, if I ask you today who is the most honest politician or most honest bureaucrat or most honest professor, even the most honest student, and that part of honesty in the society, that debate about honesty and integrity in the society has now completely disappeared. That is very, very dangerous. Third, we have stopped believing in philosophical and ideological beliefs. That is very important. If you look at the political discourse of today, I see it more as anti-politics. We don't want politics, but we want to be in politics kind of discourse. We don't want ideology. But ideology is not that vague, that abstract thing. If you talk about how do we produce, what should be the production mechanism, who should produce, who should consume, how should we price, when you enter into this daily life kind of thing, automatically the ideology comes in. If you say everything should be done by a state, you will probably enter into a domain of communism. If you say, okay, it should be mixed, it could be like some kind of socialism. No, mainly things should be done by the private sector and there should be government. You should probably entering into the domain of capitalism, in ideological domain of capitalism. So I repeat, what is the beauty of idealism as an ideology or philosophy? Is if you believe in ideology, you start to idealize things. You want to be an idol, model character in the society. So capacity, integrity, and ideology. These three things are completely missing from the political discourse. That's the biggest problem. And even if this change cannot bring those three things back, if it continues to pointing fingers to somebody else, okay, he is corrupt, I am not, without a credible kind of proof or data, that is not going to solve the problem. And on top of it, when I talk about politics, three major things happened. First, we said we are a democracy. When we say we are a democracy, the people should feel that I am powerful while voting. Until yesterday, people seemed okay voting these people. It is not that overnight these people became corrupt. They needed to be thrown out. Because people consciously did not exercise their democratic power to vote. There was a choice. If they dislike a candidate thrown by the party in the fray, they should have the ability to find a candidate from their community or the person who believes in these three things, capacity, integrity, and ideology, should come forward. I practice this despite all the odds. That is not happening. So today we elect these leaders, make prime minister, minister, member of parliament. Tomorrow we say these are the wrong people. I'm not only blaming the Nepali people. If you take the example of any other country, Donald Trump or any other big powerful leader, today you elect and from tomorrow on you start to hate them. So that is our inability, the system's inability to educate people how powerful they are, how their and their children's future is shaped by these people by making policy. If you're making them powerful right from the time of Montesquieu, there is a social contract, we say. The social contract should be effective. Okay, if you are making them powerful, they should be capable, first of all, with people with integrity to solve the problem of today and tomorrow. So that is that did not happen. One of the problems is that that is on the ideological part. Another is on the political parties. the complete lack of internal democracy in the parties. That has stopped the younger generation to enter into the party system, into the parties which they like ideology, unadulterated ideology, not ideology just to sow it, just to put on the banner of your party. Whichever ideology the parties preached, if they practice it, and there would have been scope for the younger generation to join in on the basis of this discourse. And that has stopped the internal democracy. That's the second. And the third key element is the very fast criminalization of politics. Even after this Gen Z movement, I fear that the decriminalization of politics is not on the cards. So when you going back to your question whether there's a systems failure, it's the comprehensive failure of the politics, the society, and the economics. I'll talk more in economics later on, but the society should take responsibility of electing the right kind of people, choose who is the right kind of people. They should believe in some kind of political forces with the right kind of ideology that is somehow related to solving the societal problems, day-to-day problems, generational problems, and economic problems. So that is important.
I'd like to kind of have an opinion on your second point. Politics is looked as more of second course of being serving the people. But I'd like to argue that if politics in general was kind of positioned in such a way like engineers, doctors. For example, as a student, as a Gen Z, I look at doctors, engineers, I look at their pay grades, and I kind of idealize being those people because they come with the pay, the power, and the
lifestyle.
Lifestyle, yeah. But when I picturize politicians, it's more of serving the people at surface value. But when we look inside it, it's more of people getting the money in other courses, in other ways. So I'd like to argue where if politics is also looked in a way where, okay, if you can make certain money, here's you can make that money. If it's more than the rest of the people, sure, but at least have the courtesy to do justice and not I think that would, in my opinion, that would lessen corruption in some ways.
See, politics is about your belief in ideology, I said. And there is an element only in politics that you should sacrifice. Suppose you are in business, the most you are asked to sacrifice is your CSR, nothing more than that. But if you choose to be in politics saying that I'm ready to be a public servant, a selfless public servant, please mind the word, in that case, this is true to their preaching of it is going to be a selfless public service. If you think there should be lakhs of politicians in the country, that is not required. What is absolutely wrong on the part of many of the political parties is they are counting on their number of their cadres. That does not happen. The only time you care about the politics is when the elections come.
True.
It applies. Look at there is no such a big regimentation in the Republican or Democratic Party in US. Same applies the Conservative and Labour Party in the UK. So it is not being a party member does not mean that you earn a license to earn illegally. It doesn't mean you are allowed to be in the cartel of grabbing tenders in municipalities. So basically we deviated from this discourse of sense of sacrifice for the cause of nation and society. And there is another element, the learned lot refuse to come into politics. It is very dangerous. If you look at the last 10 presidents of the United States, or 10 prime minister of UK, or any developed country, we love giving examples of Singapore. They are the people who have been to best of the universities. The most mocked about Prime Minister Boris Johnson was part of Oxford. The flamboyant president in United States, the black president Barack Obama, was from Harvard Law School. So what it means is, what I'm trying to emphasize here is, the discourse in the political circle in Nepal is that they are trying to show as if the university degrees, the talents, the capability is not required in politics, which is completely wrong, which is completely destructive. And it is destructive, but it did not help country to take forward. So if in the party system there was an evaluation system with internal democracy, most qualified one, what do I mean by qualified one? Okay, we have got the economic problem. So the party should give opportunity to at least few dozens of economists and planners to their platform, to implement their policies, even to formulate their development policy. Similarly, they must have few educationists who know what the education is, what the higher education is, school education is, which can be reflected in the policy making of the parties. I wonder, how many good economists do you see in the major parties that are ready to talk in technical terms about the economic problems of today? Same applies the education problem, health problem. What they are doing? There are few opportunists with the degrees, and whenever they are required, they probably change their color overnight and to grab the position, just to grab the position. So that is not helping. So the internal grooming of the capable people in the party and the honest people in the party failed. So that is the system entirely failed. And another critical point is that we could not undertake a very comprehensive political reform right since 1990. What does that mean? First reform should have been that there is no alternative to democracy. That did not happen. Second reform, we failed in electoral reforms. So any kind of dirty money could be used in winning elections. Third, our accountability system. I can earn any amount of money without showing the source. I can bet a member of parliament who has maybe elected, who is member of parliament for last 25 years, can save money to buy a house in Kathmandu, to buy a car in Kathmandu. So it is apparently disproportionate kind of life they are living in, and then their earning source. So I think these are very basic sources of frustration. And the narrative we created, sometimes very wrongly, that we always portrayed a very rosy picture, leaving this country is the solution, not correcting the system is solution. And nobody tried to put genuine efforts to reform this politics. First in the party level reform, second is the electoral reform. Third is the reform linking, political reform linking to the needs of the country. That means you are electing a mayor. How much does your mayor know about his constitutional rights and limits? How much a current day mayor knows about the technicalities of formulating a budget, making a project bank at his locality, and how much of the people, beneficiaries, demand about the development and the correction of the system. So if you look through the dynamics of demand and supply, both sides have failed. And a social narrative that we created for last 40 years, that living for the youth mainly, leaving the country is the solution, not fighting back is the solution. It is somebody else's problem. Means we didn't demand good governance. We never believed in revolting against the faulty system. We never demanded the correction in the system. That demand does not have to be violent. We didn't demand the political parties should field a particular candidate that have got the capability and vision to change these sort of anomalies in the system. So that we didn't do. So it is the comprehensive sort of failure, not only to blame to the politics, society, both the demand side, they are the people who, they should demand good governance, they should demand development. They are not demanding it. They should be demanding, honestly demanding it. There is no demand for development. So it has become an incentive for the corrupt system to just flourish.
I see three elements. Like first element being the geopolitics getting inside in the way of the development. Second being proper people being in the government level in terms of education and how well they know what should be done. And another might be the societal perception being on how politics is looked at. From my perspective, those are the three that is kind of problematic for Nepal's development. Do you think these three aspects needs a change? If so, in what ways?
Okay, let me little change the order. Let me begin with education. Whether it is a public education system or private education system, our education, high school or until high school, we generally have a fairly good education system. Because a candidate, a student who has completed 12th grade makes way to admission in any of the good universities in the world, generally. Of course, we have problems, the percentage of failure, the evaluation system, the teachers not being available in the remote villages, and worst of all, when the school education, responsibility of school education was given to the municipalities, very few of them are realizing that importance of it is their responsibility to invest within the municipality and impart a quality education. But system is there, the constitution is there. But generally, I see there is a scope. If there are lacunae, and we have got a scope of changing it, and the overall the curriculum, the pedagogy generally is okay. We may have to train, and even in the university education, we created absolutely wrong narrative that our higher education is not up to the expectation. That is not the case. We need to increase the reach, but the doctors we produce are fantastic world over. I have repeated it maybe a dozen times. The Nepali doctors are, the success rate of the Nepali doctors in USMLE is the highest. And US government actually investigated into this mysterious success rate of the Nepali doctors, but no flaws were found. They are genuinely hardworking. Little tweaking is fine. I mean, they need to prepare according to their pattern. If they go to UK, they need to do, and there is so much of a demand of nurses all over the world, that is produced by our education system. engineers. Yes. So, but we continuously said our education system has failed. Yes, there will always be room for improvement. But general, our courses are not inferior. Our teachers, yes, it is difficult to find a good teacher in the kind of salary we pay, but whatever we are teaching good. So it has happened despite the fact that we don't have comprehensive higher education policy. So in higher education, where we failed, we focused in terms of, we focused on skills. We focused on degrees, but when I say skills, I'm talking about the hard skills in engineers, hard skills in doctors. We failed in the soft skills. What is soft skills is not only about your interpersonal relationship. It is your level of empathy, your ability to love your culture, your ability to love your country. If this country is not attractive, when you are educated, there has to be a sort of feeling, or sort of catalysm that, okay, I am not now educated, so this is my responsibility to improve the country. If my salary is poor, it is me who should contribute to uplift the overall the system that becomes capable of paying higher salary to my next generation. So that kind of ability we did not inculcate. Even in designing the courses, we never thought that we can have 2, 3, 4 courses in higher education, that the international students can come and learn our pure knowledge system. Be that knowledge system can be our indigenous knowledge, our cottage industries, our technical artisan classes like the metallurgy, leatherwork, woodwork, our traditional music, our religious studies. We are a fantastic place for comparative religious studies. Our universities should be able to delivering that courses. So, of course, we try to copycat in the large portion of our curricula from the Western universities and not integrating our own components into it. There is still a scope, so that we started to create some of the registers. I see a student goes to study abroad and he starts to manufacture false documents saying there is a great amount of insecurity. If I go back, I may be killed. So he wants to convert into asylum if he or she does not get employment. That sense of, dismissing the country, denigrating the country is painful. Because if you look at the Gaza, if you look at Ukraine, if you look at any other country, if you look at the everyday deportation threat of any other nationals from America, the younger generation must realize that your country is the best place to be in. I don't see that sort of passionate patriotism coming into younger generation. It is not only about having a car, having a excuse me, a good house, clean road. If our roads are dirty, it is our responsibility to clean them. Create a cohort of those cleaners. Create a society that loves this place. So, by any standards, this is a beautiful country, not only to say. From every aspect. Even if we are able to develop the course on Nepal's flora and fauna, it would be great. But we have not done that, the climatic variations of it. So, I think we not only became gradually dependent on economy, but also in the knowledge system. Our traditional knowledge system, how rich was it? Was it experimented? Only thing we probably needed to give a little bit of scientific evidence to what we are practicing. So every country is teaching that of their culture. If you go to China, one of the major component of the medical students is the Chinese traditional medicine. They must study. Last week I was in Thailand. Every medical college now have got the section Thai traditional medicine. That's knowledge. But we are not appreciating it in many aspects. That is on the education side. When I say the comprehensive education policy, it must have been linked to our future development plans. If your higher education system is expected to produce 30,000 doctors, you should have a vision that, okay, out of 30,000, 15,000 will migrate in other countries, but 15,000 will work. So let's produce 30,000 doctors in 10 years' time.
Can I differ a bit here?
Let me complete this sentence. Same applies to engineers. If you're thinking about linking road, providing drinking water, everything, our higher education system should know, should have the projection, okay, this is the manpower we want to produce and we want to employ. And when we are allowing to open colleges, universities, without those sort of calculations. Yeah, you're trying to say something.
So I had the privilege of experiencing Nepal's education system versus an international system. I did international baccalaureate, and comparing those two systems, I feel like one of the key missing points inside the Nepali education system is critical thinking. We're not pushed to really question, rather than we're pushed to memorize a lot of stuff. That's what I feel about my education system. And coming towards, so a lot of people want to go abroad when it comes to after their SLC or after 12th grade. I think that's because also a point would be FOMO. So a lot of people can't literally bear the idea of staying in Nepal and being educated here. Not only it's more of linked to a sense of identity and FOMO rather than them questioning the education system, in my opinion. But I feel like our government could have done a bit better in terms of the soft influence that we have. Because, for example, for me or a lot of my friends, we heavily rely on the Western cultures. Let's suppose Netflix. Our consumption is based on the Western media. So when it comes to those educational systems, we are more prone to go there, because we see the literal sense that we see in Nepal is frustration in terms of where we go, the government offices. I think that's where kind of frustration lies, and it's somehow miscalculated in a way where our pride or our sense of love to our country dissolves. That's how I feel.
That's okay. I mean, like you, I have been to international education system. I'm educated at least in a couple of those great institutions. But that should not minimize your sense of responsibility to the country. Government system, okay. It is very easy in democracy. So if even today, even we are saying we are holding elections, it is so simple. I don't see your generation, Gen Z generation, asking among the parties, whoever it is, okay, we will vote only if this sort of candidates are filled. I've said 200 times in my interview, let's say at least to be a member of parliament, you have to be a graduate. To be a minister, you should at least be a master's degree holder. And the contemporary knowledge he or she should possess. It may not be a foolproof thing, but the training, you have gone through a training, the 4-year bachelor's degree teaches you something. And try to link to with your discipline. So these are the kind of debates we are not doing here. There are other aspects which I will come back to you, but if you have done a bachelor's degree from a good university, you are not inclined to join the public service. If you're a master's degree holder from a good, well-ranked university, you are not likely to join as a teacher. Yes, that is where we need to see the change. We need to work to change for adequate pay. I'll come back to it, but our economy is capable of doing that. Just the system is failing. We are not poor by any standards. We have load of resources. We are paying indirectly. Our education, our system is paying indirectly. Only for the education, we are spending about $4 billion to import education. So think of investing that $4 billion in the country and improving the education system. That will generate employment as well. So it is only about the system. It is like your ability as a planner, as an economist, as a thinker, to put money from this pocket to this pocket within the economy, to mobilize those resources. So that is where we lacked. That is where we lacked. So I very often say we have got the policy cycle, policy versus political cycle, and there is another prosperity cycle. Our entire discourse today is focused on the policy cycle. Will there be election? Will there be new law? Will there be new constitution? Will there be this law? Will this political party will win? It is only about the process and the policy circle we are talking about. That you may have 20 more election. We already have 7 constitution change in how many years? Since 2051. In 75 years or so. In entire debate, if you watch the television debate, podcast, everybody is talking all bullshit without entering into the necessity of entering into the discourse of prosperity cycle. And we are dismissing this very important aspect of it. Every day you read the news, one kind of a catchword you will find is we'll have a progressive socialism, absolute socialism, democratic socialism, this socialism. What does that mean? Nobody has defined it. You are into it. And okay, you have a manifesto, you have election, you have law, you have constitution, you have parliament, you have cabinet. That is not going to change this level of frustration. So you very emphatically, very dedicatively enter into the prosperity cycle debate at least. Not action will come later. But let's enter into the very objective kind of prosperity cycle debate. What is the prosperity cycle? Fundamentally, do you have economic resources? If not, can you generate economic resources? For what? Second point is investment in the cycle. Okay, when you invest, you enter into the phase of manufacturing from production. It is not the token thing you produce. You into the economies of scale with manufacturing. That's the third. When you enter into the manufacturing, that does 2 things simultaneously. You have the goods and commodities produced, service produced. When you are in the expanded service and goods manufacturing area, you generate employment. Okay? And when you generate employment, the people's lifestyle improves. Hope improves. And again, when there is earning, then you come back to the resource management and the cycle gets completed. And then there has to be, if you think of these 2 cycles, then you should be able to link. Is your constitution friendly to generate these resources? Okay? Is your law making favorable to this manufacturing process or employment generation process? Okay. Is your parliament debating these issues very vehemently? Are those parliamentarians capable of discussing these things? And is the system you created, you call it, yesterday you call it panchayat, then you call it a multi-party system, then you call it the federal system, is it contributing to facilitate, to grease, to run this prosperity cycle? Even today, I am thoroughly disappointed. Nobody is willing to enter into this prosperity cycle debate. But if you look at this Gen Z revolution, they said we want corruption-free system. We want employment. We want education here. What are they asking? Are they asking this policy or political cycle to run or economic cycle to run? This prosperity cycle to run. It is obviously the prosperity cycle. If your economy is highly productive, corruption is secondary. In Japan, in every 2 years, a government collapses on the corruption allegations. But Japan can sustain that because there is so much of productivity going on. So little money the politician takes is a very small compared to the size of the national economy. And when they are found guilty, they go away. They don't get elected here again. So the major thing is the production and productivity of services and goods. That will create a virtuous cycle, normally people say, but I have said it prosperity cycle. So if even today, the Gen Z frustration, the frustration of general people is not going to be solved by another election. If you're not putting conditions that no one without bachelor's degree is allowed to enter into the parliament, who will not elect it, then nobody should be minister without master's degree. And when there are number of master's degree holders in different disciplines, definitely a better qualified person will head the ministry. And if you not enter into the debate of the prosperity cycles, you may throw this. I hear a lot of debates. Should we continue with this constitution? Does not matter. Does not matter. It is not the constitution that start production. It is this system it should start. Fortunately, Nepal has a tremendous lot of resources. That is where the ideology comes. If you look at something that is working in Nepal, what is working? There is a quite substantial amount of electricity production. Okay, we reached to 4,000 megawatts of energy, hydropower, clean energy. 80% of it is produced through private sector investment. Go to the banking, the access to finance. We are boasting that all of our 753 municipalities and rural municipalities now have at least one commercial bank branch. But look at how has it been possible? Is again 80-85% of the banking system
Private.
Is investment by the private sector.
Look
at the domestic aviation. 95% of the service in the domestic aviation is provided by the private sector. Education. I belong to Kathmandu University. 50% of the medical professionals are produced by Kathmandu University entirely through our 11 medical colleges. And you are minimizing the role of private sector. Okay, I can give you a dozen of those sectors where only because of the very short window of a policy change between 1990 and 1994 made it possible to unlock the private sector investment in the economy, and once it started, there is no going back. That helped to sustain the 10-year-long civil war, this long kind of a sort of political instability, because that continued to grease the economy.
Can I ask you a question? For example, you said an example of Japan. So can we be in a similar position where the political side and the prosperity cycle, as you mentioned, the economic part of the world is separate? Because throughout the years, what we have discovered is the economics of Nepal is being intervened by policies and the collapse of government. So do you think those things can be separately aligned?
Want to experience Italy without leaving Kathmandu? Check out this rooftop pizzeria that's changing Kathmandu's pizza game. Sicily by Teas is a gourmet rooftop Italian restaurant serving authentic pizzas, refreshing breezers, and a tiramisu that'll blow your mind. With the signature Italian sausage and creamy pastas, it's perfect for date nights and chill evenings. If you want to have the best food tasting experience, Sicily by Teas is waiting to tease your palate.
Can be. But why these sectors have done? If you're thinking about development, it is never possible to develop the country with the public sector funds only. So we must have instruments. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to reinvent this instrument, be that venture capital, impact fund, blended finance, even some form of PPP. The world has experimented it in a great deal. But we are not doing anything in terms of policy changes. And Nepal's development cannot be imagined without unlocking the private fund, whether it is the foreign investment or domestic investment. So there is no focus. I'm not talking about whether the policy is formulated. There is no debate, I tell you. The most disappointing, there is no economic debate in the country. There is no economic debate within the parties. There is no major economic component in the manifestos of the political parties they are likely to write for the coming election, or they wrote for the past election. There will be a chapter, but again it will say some kind of socialism. It does not say which are the industry they are going, how they are going to unlock the private sector, how they are going to build the confidence of the private sector. So we need to look into that, and then we need to bring the debate about the economy and prosperity into the mainstream. And Nepal, I said, it is a very, very rich country. I have given data in several other occasions. Like I said, very simply, we spend $4 to $5 billion to import education. Similarly, $2 billion to import health services. And we know we spend $15, $20 billion just to import goods. We have got such a huge trade deficit because we are not producing anything. And we have got so much of it, $21.5 billion in state coffers in foreign currency. And in the banking system, we have about $8 billion of loanable fund not used at present. So what are we looking at? So which politician is debating about this strength we are having?
It reminded me of a discussion that was going on. A recent politician, or how would I like to say, Durga Prasad said, we need to reduce the interest up to 5%, and all the loans below 20 lakhs should be kept off. So do you think that is realistically possible from the economic standpoint?
Even if it is possible, you should not destroy the banking sector with this sort of whimsical things. First of all, writing off of any loan without parameters will overnight collapse the banking system. It should not happen, cannot happen. As regards the lowering the interest rate, it should be. It should be not only in the interest rate. if you are a private sector investor, why can't the state give a free electricity if your value addition is 100%? You are using local raw materials, local employment, local system. And if you are producing and even exporting, why can't they have 1 rupee per unit electricity? It should not only be through the banking and financial system. If you are value adding 50%, why can't they have the 2 rupees per unit electricity? If they are polluting industry, they are not producing anything, okay, they can pay the higher electricity charges. So you have to have some kind of incentive for the private sector to invest in. But it should not be a political stunt. It should not be a political stunt. It cannot happen. So it should not happen. In that case, in two things we have completely failed in formulating the policies for cooperatives. Our constitution says cooperatives should be managed by the municipalities. That was well thought about provision in constitution. Because cooperatives are small, they may be production cooperatives or financial cooperatives. Everybody knows everybody, okay, in the locality. And the mayor knows who is likely to be the CEO of that cooperative, who is the chairperson, who is the borrower, for what he is borrowing, and they can regulate it. If one defaults, it is the community that should solve. But what we did, we centralized the problem. We collected all the problems. We don't know who are the, and then we treated them as a bank. We allowed them, going in a remote district, I could open an account in cooperatives, I could borrow and run away. That was not the idea. In that front, we totally destroyed the cooperative system. That is one of the reasons our consumption pattern very seriously changed. Consumption ability at the local level changed. And that caused the present level of economic worries or a sort of recession type of thing. And the very recently, if you see the data, it said we are 1.1% level of inflation. That means in economic terms we are at a very serious deflationary pressure. When we are in deflationary pressure, your investment confidence will be very, very low. Very, very low. Because if the value of money is going down, why, if you invest 1 crore today, if there is no scope of increasing your value to 102 lakh rupees, 1 crore and 2 lakh rupees in a year's time, who would invest? So the economy is seriously in a deflationary pressure. So when it comes to banking sector, we fail to diversify the banking products. We are just a traditional banking, and you deposit, at the most you go into the fixed deposit, bargaining with interest. No. At one point of time, Nepal Rastra Bank mentioned in monetary policy that the Nepali banks can borrow from abroad. But no Nepali bank had that credibility that international financial system would trust them and put money in their basket. So it is the credibility question. The banking system should reinvent it. Even in the private sector, it is private sector banks. We have talked, we appreciated the contribution they have made, but the corporate governance aspect has been hugely compromised. This is the aspect where the state policy making should look into.
Can I add into, so talking about the currency itself, do you think it's a problem that our currency is pegged to the Indian currency? Because the BRICS countries are slowly trying to devalue dollar, which means that it might affect our currency. So do you think that's a problem?
It is not devaluing dollar. They are trying to de-dollarize it, not devalue. They are trying to do more transaction among their currencies. but it is a very long-term, huge process. Just think about the amount of US Treasury bills that the Bank of China holds. It is not that easy to. Definitely, the Bank of China would not like the dollar to devalue very sharp because they are holding it so much of asset. Think about the amount of dollar asset possessed all over the world. So that is a different story. I don't get into the international monetary policy aspect of things. But pegging has provided us a very big cushion because 2/3 of our economic transactions are with India. The only strategy to increase the value of money is you must produce something. Must produce something. You must have something tangible to export. Our business community has believed in the fake export. You import soybean oil and package it and export. No. If you want to export soybean oil, it has to have a proper backward linkages. You should produce soybeans here. That will help our farmers. And you produce soybean and you sell it. And that is export. And everything from pashmina to from pharmaceuticals, we boast so much about exporting certain brand of shoes without having a plastic or rubber industry or button industry or cotton industry. Same applies with our garments. We don't have a cotton farming, we don't have our fabric. So naturally our garment industry is going to collapse. Same may apply to pashmina. Same may apply to our handicrafts. Like we don't have the metals of our own. We must produce with adequate backward linkage in the inputs. When I say inputs, it is all three kinds of input: the capital input, the raw materials, and the skill inputs, the employment.
Do you think, in terms of, let's suppose, a thing like cannabis, in the medical sense, do you think since we have blocked or somehow banned cannabis in Nepal, do you think that's a put off for the Nepal's economy?
Many things would be, but it is not. We cannot produce anything from cannabis to offset our trade deficit that is in billions. We must have. First of all, our strategy must be on import substitution. Whatever we are importing. My priority would be, first, let's substitute import of the food items. Rice, oil. We import about 1/3 of the total imports that we consume, daily consumables. Maybe meat products, dairy products, hatchery products, farm products, vegetables, fruits. It's tragedy that when the Nepali kiwi comes or Nepali avocado comes in the market, it is 150 rupees per kilo, even 100 rupees per kilo. When it is off season, it is 800 instantly. So these are the system. That is where the state should wisely think and start to change. So first, production with the prime focus to substitute the import, and then we can think of few items that can be exported in economic scale, industrial scale, not in tokens. I mean, how much pashmina you can export with this sort of things? How much garments you can export? How much handicrafts? If you think of by exporting handicrafts, you cannot do that handmade things in that
large scale.
Scale. No. So you have to have the economic vision. We lack, like I said, and we lack comprehensive vision in education. We lack comprehensive vision in economy. We have so far failed to model our economy. What kind of economy we want to run? There should be a kind of consensus among the major political parties, given our this strength or weaknesses of our economy, the basic characteristics of our economy, we should model our economy in this fashion. With regard to foreign policies regarding to foreign direct investment, with regard to sovereign guarantee of it, with regard to ensuring the reasonable return and repatriation of the international investment, foreign investment, boosting the morale of the business people and the industrialists here. And of course, the geopolitics come. I think you mentioned about geopolitics. We have not dwelt on that so far, but it is there. So we need to, we should be convinced that false narrative cannot help. When I say this, when we say socialism, what we are saying? Are we effectively saying let private sector set up the industry, in near future we will nationalize it? Let private sector open a great college, and in due course of time we'll saying that every profit earner is a culprit and we'll nationalize it? The whole narrative of profit making is not very positive, I would say, if I don't use a very harsh word.
I've also seen in a policy level, or people, how they perceive people who are entrepreneurs and big entrepreneurs. Recently, the second day of the Gen Z movement, a lot of industrialists were kind of targeted. And also in a sense of, let's suppose, recently I heard the news that Bishwanath Paudel's allowance was somehow in the trending parts of the media, where people criticized him. But I believe that he is one of the finest minds of Nepal, in my opinion. And rather than in other parts of the whole economy, they are kind of dwelling on his allowance or removing him, rather than focusing on other intellectuals and pushing them in that state.
That is always a fight. That is always a fight. If you try to make system transparent, functional, and credible, as a regulator, there always be sort of resentment, and there will be people who try to corner him or criticize him. That is where you need the state. The state should understand what it is doing and should be firm, not to be moved by, not to be blackmailed by these people. What actually happened, that is why I mentioned the word criminalization of politics. We never talked about the conflict of interest in policy making. When the conflict of interest continued for so many years, and there are already powerful fall players into the game and try to do this. So I think every leader will have a vision. Like as the head of the Kathmandu University, I have my vision, how should I run Kathmandu University. Everybody may not agree with that, but I must have a good intention, and my results should prove that I did the right thing in due course of time. Same thing applies with the central bank. I think he will get good results, whatever he is trying to do to cleanse the system.
In terms of also, like, because our educational system has also been criticized. For example, there was a dispute about TU not getting the exams at the right time, and that was, the frustration was felt by the people there. So do you think those kind of things, what do you think, why is those kind of things happening in such an institute?
We never try to reform this institution for long. It doesn't take a lot of effort. We said the political interference, and without exactly defining what it is, we continue to this debate to go out of hands. When we are trying to control the political interference, at least any element that disturbs the exam calendar must be severely punished by the state. But what happened in the past is that these elements are protected by the political parties in the governing case, in the governing seat. In our case, like yesterday, we in Kathmandu University, we are very particular about calendar. That is one of the attractions, and we have said that the December 10th is the one day of convocation. We have two convocation, and the May 30th is the another day of June, not beyond June 15th. So every the mechanism within the university runs with that. Okay, the teachers should complete the course, the internal exams are fitted in within that time frame. So it is how you plan things. So I think it is about management, and when there is good management, the state should support it.
How do you think, how do you manage in terms of politics getting into a university like Kathmandu University, and how do you keep politics away from education?
In Kathmandu University, only thing we get is some threats about the donation or some promotion, but we are very particular about it. And the biggest strength is the students. Whenever there are some political party organization tries to disturb the classes, they are the ones, they say we don't want our classes to be cancelled. And one best thing is that there are few the few organizations of students affiliated to political parties, but they are also very responsible. They don't want their own calendar to disturb. So, and we have, very fortunately, we have got the non-political system of electing student representative. We call it the Student Welfare Council. So it is completely non-partisan. Each school unit has it, and they are the biggest strength of stopping unnecessary politics within the university. And we don't, except in some of the unforeseen things, like during Gen Z movement, we had to postpone classes for 15 days due to security concerns. It did not last that, but we took precautions. During COVID, we had some backlog of 6 months. Otherwise, we are committed. Everybody is committed. Teachers are committed. The staff are committed. The students are committed to complete their studies.
I also want to shift this more into the productive economy, more of how our funds or our economy is more heavily relied on remittance, and how, let's suppose, the investment is more on the unproductive side, and how we can make it into more productive side.
There are phases. Let me say at the role of remittance. At the initial days, the remittance played a very important role in reducing poverty. There were a lot of people not getting nutritious food, their children not getting into school, their families not getting medicine. That phase is somehow now over. And generally, we don't see a lot of crisis in those fronts these days. You don't hear huge stories about famine, scarcity, or not having access to basic medical facilities. And during very difficult time of crisis, remittances helped for the overall macroeconomic stability. So that was great. But it is again the policy of the state that should have planned to utilize these funds for uplifting the economic performance of the entire economy. You cannot put this responsibility to the remitters who go abroad to work and also bring back money and develop that. There are ways which we have not considered. For example, when we created federalism, The municipalities should not have been considered about the crude political units. They should have been thought as economic units, the productive economic units, smaller economies in themselves, providing employment, at least producing something, taking the products into the market. So in that way, we have failed to mobilize our system. So that is one. Not only the remittance, we don't have to look into the remittance. See the amount of loanable fund available in the bank. Okay. So we have the model, but we are not practicing it to utilize it. For example, we have a Nepal Oil Corporation. It is not that it earns profit always. Whenever there is a problem, there is a state behind it, providing needed liquidity in the form of loan from Employment Provident Fund to insurance companies, even from the state coffers. Why? Because it was treated as a corporate entity. Despite being owned by the government, it earned and paid back. But if you have got so much money in the system, why you cannot have the same business model in infrastructure? Why you can't have a same business model in education? Nepal can be one of the biggest hub of medical education. If you invest in creating a 2, 3, 4 good medical universities or medical hospitals with good teaching hospitals. Same thing may apply in engineering. Same thing may apply in Buddhist studies. Today, on this day, Bhutan announced that it would be creating a mindfulness city, investing $1 billion to create a city. What it is doing is it is just giving the people, tourists, a service they wanted to be happy. Probably teaching some Buddhist sermons or having sessions of the singing bowl or anything. The product they might decide, but they have invested. So Nepal has got money, and why we can't have productivity? The pathetic part is, even we are not able to spend the budget, the capital budget we announced in the annual budget speech.
Mhm.
In 5 months, we have spent less than 10%, 8% we have already barely spent 8% of it. So this is the governance. That is where I say two circles. If you think of the government productivity, spending all the capital budget it has allocated, and this government system, the process system should work. And then we'll have the result. So what we are doing, we are not even fully making functional the federal system, and we are now debating, should we change the constitution? Should we revert from the federal system to unitary system? Whereas we never fully mobilize the strength of this system. So you may change the name of the system, but if once again, if you do not bring in capable people from the political process and the bureaucratic process, we are going to face the same problem. And that is where the young politicians, aspiring politicians should intervene. Okay, I can be happy for next 10 years without taking a single rupee bribe and trying to give service to the people, unlike their predecessors did, with dilly-dallying and creating unnecessary hassle. That is not happening.
How are we struggling to spend money? Because from a normal point of view, people who don't really know about economics, spending is one of the easiest thing to do. So how is government struggling to spend money?
They don't have the plan. That is where I say that not only the government, the people don't have demand for development. People have not demanded any substantial amount of development. Only thing they have said that we probably, if some budget comes, we will have a dozer model of development in the hills. That's no. Where have you seen we would like to participate and we need a quality education institution? Which minister have you seen that I need a good skill development center in my area, which produces the skilled manpower? So even the people are not demanding, and we don't have the plans. If you look at this 5-year plans, they are the same essay writing exercises for several years. I try to look into the 16th plan, and being in the education industry, I said, okay, what is our projection? How many doctors will we need in next 20 years, or how many bankers we need? If you want to have a fully developed hospitality or tourism industry, how many bachelor's degree holders we might need in 10 years' time? It doesn't say anything, and it says a 5-year plan. Because we never believed that this plan should be written by qualified people. And when we're talking about the qualified people, we are not talking about thousands of people. Even in politics and even in planning, there are not 100 Gandhis, they change the country. There are not 100 Mandelas, they change the country. There is not 100 Lee Kuan Yew, they change the country. In politics, they should have a people with a moral authority, not legal authority, not constitutional authority. We are debating only the constitutional authority and all. Mahatma Gandhi never had a constitutional power, but he could sway the country. So, a person with moral authority, single 1 or 2 persons should have a vision. And all the people, like Nehru may not have been an ascetic like Gandhi, but he had a tremendous knowledge. He knew what he wanted to do. One finest example is three-wheelers. You know what happened? He went to Japan and came back, and he went to many old cities of India. There was no possibility of a car going into the streets. And the three-wheeler served the purpose of a car. And it became so famous all over India, even in the subcontinent. So, you should know what you are doing. And being in politics, without the knowledge what do you exactly want to do. Okay, person X wants to be Prime Minister maybe 4th time. So what new that person is likely to do? A minister 5th time. So if there is no vision and creativity, what is the ground reality and what I can really contribute in terms of a planning and implementation of the same, you are going to running into vicious cycle. That is exactly the problem. And if there are some thinkers in any party, they were very systematically ostracized by the so-called power grabbing, and there is no protest from the youths. It is not required even to have ideology less, vision less political force, which even cannot work. There will not be a binding organizing force without a sort of defined kind of vision and ideology. But if there is willingness to get into all these parties of their liking and transform them into the good democratic institution, that will automatically change things.
I've talked with other economists as well. Their point is moreover the implementation is weak rather than the policy. What do you think? The policy is the thing that we have to reinvent, or the implementation?
We should not be always making mess of the policies. We should learn from few of the countries like China, Vietnam, and even Singapore or Malaysia. These were not greatly democratic countries. Only thing they did was they kept their policy predictability intact. The assurance to the investor is that for next 20 years, this policy is going to work. So policy, generally, we have got just okay. We don't have two things. We don't have, we say implementation. Implementation has got the components. You need the person who knows what project is, what project implementation is, what project evaluation is, and what project replication is. So what we are doing is we are giving projects to a generalist, or maybe a section officer who passed Lok Seva Ayog long ago and never heard about the project management, is the head of whole in charge of things. So yes, there is problem in implementation, but where exactly is the problem we need to find out? Is it in the Procurement Act? Is it the threat of the corruption? Is this always a tendency that I will go into contract if I get some kickbacks from it? So, and we have not put any effort. How many discussion you think has gone in a year among the policy making circle for their inability to carry out the capital expenditure?
Mm-hmm.
How many times the secretaries of the ministry have sat down together and intensely discussed, okay, we are not being able to spend, let's spend. So either our budget making system should be completely faulty, that we allocate and cannot spend, or our delivery system, so somewhere there should be a fault. It cannot continue year after year after year after year for 2 decades with the same painful story. We cannot continue that without correcting it. That is why I am saying, forget about this politics and process cycle thing. They will come. There are countries who have remained, who still are colonies technically, like Australia and Canada. They have progressed like anything. So what it says is that your republicanism is only a thing to put in a showcase, nothing to do with the real development. Whether we have it or have not, doesn't make difference. Same thing with federalism or no federalism. It doesn't make difference. Only thing is the execution. Execution, what you preach, what you promise to the people. Try to deliver. And without a technical person in the technical project management side of anything, in education, in infrastructure, in communication, in IT, you need a person who knows things at the policy making. You are a science and technology minister who probably doesn't even know the full form of IoT or AI or things like that. Or I'm not indicating to anybody, but we never probably have heard about the digital double or digital twins. And if you expect the policy to be formulated, a futuristic policy to be formulated from this mechanism, is a problem. That is why the current day politics hugely needs debate over capability. I may have said it 10 times even in this session. The capability, demand for capability must come from the people. So there should be the voters should be able to say that it may be a candidate from any party, we are going to vote only if this guy has got master's degree. So what is likely to happen? From any party in one constituency, there will be a guy who has got the master's degree. So all others, if you go to the next election system, if political parties have to survive, they will start to find the person who has got the good master's degree and then the system should start to improve. So democracy is not the only thing to talk about. Really, people have got the power, and we fail to educate the people to realize them, to enable to realize them that they have got the power in the ballot box. For the people, election is like a one-day festival, and from next day they start to complain about. That is the problem. And when the young generation, so much of the young generation with so much energy has come about, they should understand that they can change it through ballot. They don't always need vandalism, or it's fine to go in the protest when things go beyond limit, but there is a process. But what we are doing is we are, disregarding and sidelining the process, very foolproof process we have, and we are resorting into certain elements of uncertainty that has got the huge cost for the country.
I think a lot of people right now, in terms of voting, they have this perception on whoever is the most popular person, I'd vote for him. They don't even think in depth on why I'm voting, for what reason I'm voting.
Exactly.
And as you said,
and its implication.
Yeah, and what their degree is. The reason I was excited for Balin was because he had a degree of engineering.
Okay.
He had the vision. He was able to kind of say the things that he would do. But I think in the recent times, after the September 8th, a lot of people are getting into politics and knowing. Before that, it was always like, I'm not going to dwell in politics. It's more of like a thing that it's corruption at its core, so I don't want to dwell it. But now I think people are slowly beginning to kind of be educated.
Interested in at least.
Yeah. But my thing is like, even if you don't question, they're kind of lost on how I can get a probable leader that would lead us.
What if I tell you this burger joint sells over 2,000 burgers and wings every single week and still leaves you craving for more? Tease Your Palate in Thumbnail is a gourmet burger joint, serving over 2,000 burgers and wings every week. Crowd favorites like the Jaw Dropper, Hook Achuk, and Smoky Barbecue wings are winning hearts across Kathmandu. If you're craving for mind-blowing burgers like this, let us tease your palate.
I mean, it is an opportunity, I tell you. It is an opportunity. If you are looking for a prosperity, there should be a person who talks more about economy and prosperity. It is so obvious and simple. Vote for that person who talks about economy, who understands the nuances and the nuts and bolts of the economy. So it's not about something vague. It's fine to be optimistic. That is the reason we have got the periodic elections. Okay, you believed in a certain person like Balin for one time. If it doesn't deliver, you don't have to be a lifelong loyalist for anybody, and there should be another person who comes and gets elected. If you look at the election in many countries, it is like the race of a dark horse. You don't know who is going to be the front runner. But in our case, I mean, the same people for 20 years are there doing nothing, and they are voting. Why do you vote on? And isn't KP Oli elected by these same voters? Isn't Sher Bahadur or Prachanda or Upendra Yadav, name anybody, is voted by this? Why did they vote them? While voting, they should have at least visualize their future, that, okay, by putting one stamp, they are betting their future, the country's future of their kids. So it is very easy. That is the reason it is not only ritual that the political parties should come out with the manifesto. What they talk about education, what they talk about energy, what they talk about the community, what they talk about economy, what they talk about the economic model, what they talk about the import and the trade deficit. That is the reason that is they need to produce manifesto. But we don't care. We don't even read or listen. That is the reason where the election debate is so popular in US. If people don't find time to read a lot of things, and the vision and ideas of their potential leaders are understood by the voters. So that is why they call the last minute swing. But our voters are fixed. They will vote who makes sure they comes to their doorstep, not the person who is capable of leading the country, but they want prosperity, which is possible to be delivered by this person only. So that is where the problem lies.
I also want to shift a bit into foreign investment, because I think remittance, rather than remittance, what we need to focus on is foreign investments. Do you think how can we make sure foreign investment is a real thing that Nepal can focus on?
I think it has been more of a story than the real achievement. If you look at the history, it's been 4 decades we have started to accept the foreign investment from 1984-85, starting from the banking sector. There used to be a bank, Indo-Suez and Nabil. But if you look at the figures, in one particular year, I think we have reached to a 2% of GDP. 2% equivalent of GDP had come as foreign investment, but except that it is 0.04% of GDP. So there is no point talking much about it unless we do 3 things. One, we must believe in the latest financial instruments, where the joint ventures, blended finance mode, and impact fund, maybe venture capital, we should have very liberal policy, and the repatriation policies should be flexible. So first of all, we should have instruments. Second, for a country like ours, we must go for sovereign guarantee for certain sectors. What does that mean is, okay, if you want big hydropower is being built, maybe 5,000 megawatt with a 5,000 megawatt capacity, and if somebody is willing, some foreign investor is willing, the state should be able to give some kind of a guarantee, sovereign guarantee we could normally call it, of repatriation. There are insurance, but that does not cover everything. So sovereign guarantee is important. Third is about the credibility of your economy and governance, which is biggest. So at a time when the government effort is not being able to lift the travel ban of certain countries, if you look at the travel advisory of so many countries these days, is horrible. That does not reflect what is happening in the country. We think we are living in relatively peaceful place, but if you look at the travel advisory issued by Australia and many other countries, is horrible. So message, okay, air safety message, the ATF, the anti-money laundering task force things. These are the areas where government should very rigorously work on. So it is about the message. But I have got a very cynical view, you may say, about the foreign debt. There is so much money in the country. Make use of it. Why are you talking so much about foreign investment? Let's start to produce. Let's start to substitute the import. Let's start to produce the goods that are exportable by our own means. And let's mobilize our SME sector with some kind of a productive incentive for the honest and genuine entrepreneurs at that level. And we have got enough resources for next 10 years. Only thing is, and when you develop the credibility about economy, about the investors, there should not be problem of investment. It is about the credibility.
So resources like, let's suppose, uranium, right? Do you think those things can be extracted and, get used of? Because a sensitive matter with that kind of resource would be if we are in a position to actually bargain with or work with other countries to actually make use of that, right? And another would be, do we have the power to negotiate with other countries, or will we just be used? So how can we use resources like uranium and other resources that we have for our benefit?
When we have got our own resources, we can definitely bargain, like we are doing in hydropower. Uranium, any other mineral product would be the same. So when there is a demand, we can also go for a sort of joint venture investment in processing, extracting and processing them. Only thing is that it is the credibility of the state, and there should be some kind of attraction among the investors to come and invest. That has not really happened. By the way, there has been a huge amount of capital flight from here. Not only the youths, and then the size of the economy we are now enjoying is far larger than we are putting into data. That nobody is living a decent life with a very only formal kind of income. So it is so much of a mixed thing of the formal and informal economies. When I say informal, the part of the shadow economy, or of a lot of money flowing in that is not accounted for in the national economy.
Could you explain more on shadow economy, because I think this is a topic that you've described in other interviews as well.
Yeah, I 10 years ago I wrote a continuous article in Kathmandu Post. Nepal's shadow economy now reaches about 2/3 of it. One parameter I have used is the basic salary of a section officer. It is 40,000 per month. It is such a magic money, I say. Okay, you can say of the ministry, secretary of a ministry, who earns nearly about 75,000 in a month. And he has got 2 kids going to boarding school, say 20,000. And then he has got saving, he has got house in Kathmandu, he has got car, he has got his family expenses. So what kind of 40,000, how magic is that? And 10 years he become one of the richest person in town. That's one parameter. Another parameter is the amount of money that comes from abroad beyond this formal channel of remittances. Just in a rough estimate, we say that there are 4 million earning Nepalese outside of this country. Okay. So in an average, calculate with that about $500 saving and sending it here. How much will that be? And if you could compare that way, the remittance that coming in is just a very small portion of it.
Your number, I think you said 70% of Nepal's economy is shadow economy. What do you mean by that?
That means the 100 rupee I spent, the 70 rupees comes from the money that is not duly tax paid. I would not say illegal or legal. For example, my relative uncle or brother is in US. He sends me $400, $500, $300 to me or my mother. For example, that is not accounted anywhere. And if you look at the foreign exchange black market, you'll be surprised. You can convert any amount of money overnight into foreign currency and repatriate. Take out any amount. And a state does not, as if a state does not know this.
We had a recent case on the embassy at UAE being like, they warned about hundi. I think it was a recent news, and Do you think that is also a case where other part of the country where they just want to take our money out, and that's being a problem?
There are two ways. One is the cleansing of the money that's earned illegally even abroad, where they cannot show the source of income. There is money not that illegal, I say. Okay, you may have experience. There are two families. One, my neighbor's family is in US. My family is here. So my neighbor's family in US needs US dollars. So my brother will give him, say, $10,000 earned to that family. And this family here gives me Nepali money. It is shown nowhere. But it is a transaction of, if you're talking about $5,000 is a 7 lakh Nepali rupees. Without a penny incurred into the taxes. Not showing anywhere. And it is not very isolated instance. There are very trusted, I don't even say that is hundi. There are trusted agents in each of the towns all over the world doing that. And it is in billions. So, if you look at where is that being invested? The gold. Land price, I said you may have heard it many places. The pass of the land price in this location is equivalent to the same size of the land pass in outer skirt of London or Amsterdam. Literally same, in dollar terms.
Yeah.
People are buying. So Nepal's land is completely fragmented into like 1.6 million, 16.5 million patches. For no reason. One of my cousins lives in Paris for last 36 years, and he has got 3 construction site here lying idle for nothing. He has invested. So there are several examples. These are not complaints. These are strength, I tell you. If you give hope about the governance, about the country, about the future for the youths, these people, their next generation of people are going to come here and make a winter home and go back. That's benefit for this country. But we must move to the initials of the prosperity cycle. That is my basic point.
Do you think people who have had their hard-earned money, should they be allowed to invest in the foreign market from Nepal?
They should. But they should be allowed not because the situation here is horrible, unpredictable. So they should be allowed as a part of the liberal economy. We also have the liberal economy. That investment outside should be based on rate of return. So anybody anywhere should be able to choose the spot of investment on the basis of rate of return in that country, return on investment. So how much will he invest and how much he will get return. So what is the narrative? I'm not convinced at present is that the situation here is not improving so that the businessman in Nepal should be allowed to invest outside. That's not the case. We should improve our economic governance within the country, and then the businessman also should be allowed to invest outside.
Do you think features like not features but simple transaction with Nepalese with dollars and using things like PayPal for transaction, do you think that's going to affect the country in a negative way or give the people more freedom on their money?
It is a relative question. Problem is not on this. If your economy is not producing anything and if you are allowing this sort of freedom to do, it will do a great harm.
No.
Okay? But if you are producing something to sell, to consume, to export, and you must allow this freedom to do. So what is the basic of economy? It is very simple. It is very simple The economy must produce something, and the whole effort of the private sector, government sector, the policies, the funds, the manpower should focus on producing something in the economy. That is the basic. That is where we completely failed. Completely failed. If you look at the export-import data today, it is saying, okay, we exported 93 billion equivalent and imported how much? 10 times more than that, 6 times, 7 times more than that. What it means, even whatever we are exporting is not true export. I gave you an example of soybean oil or anything we are exporting. That's just a marginal export. So you should be able to export or substitute the import. Then that is fine. I mean, it doesn't make a difference where you are. If your tourism products are more luxurious and cost effective, people will start sending money this side. If your agricultural product, be that the bitter grass or anything, brinjal or kiwi or avocado, is competitive of good quality, there's no harm you allowing people to freely transfer money through online platforms, the payment gateways, because there will be two-way. But the only danger we are facing today is we don't have anything to sell. So allowing them to transfer money is buying things from other side. So that is like a one-way traffic. That is the danger.
In a recent podcast, you argued that a life where, let's suppose, a person goes to abroad and him giving his youth or giving his years to the other country is doing more of harm than good for the exact person. I don't know if I got that message right, but what I'm trying to say is, for example, a lot of people go to abroad because the housing is more of affordable in a way where if they get a mortgage, if they have a good paying job, 5 years in they might get a house. But same situation in Nepal, it's going to take them a decade plus.
Exactly. I said three things. One, there should be the assurance for basic things like basic shelter, house, education, and health. That is one thing I said. Second, it was related to the anger of the younger generation. The young guy who is 20 years old has never physically met his father not more than 3-4 times. Only thing he has seen is on Viber or WhatsApp or whatever. He is my father. So if this person, son, daughter, has not felt the warmth of father sitting by, what kind of psychological setup you can expect? Can you expect empathy, love? The person who has not actually experienced a love from a person claimed to be nearest for whatever region, they are going to be violent. There is no reason they should love this country, because they have not been able to truly love the person they gave birth. So that is where I say the social disintegration is going to be very huge cost that we have not imagined. If we cannot reverse this, it is going to be even draconian in the near future. Third, about earning and investment. The quality of life is not only about money. It is the medium, yes, we need it, but it's not comparable. It's the living cost in the US, the per capita income in US may be $34,000 today, but the house you need the moderate house you rent in is how much? You would pay $500 to $1,000. So that is $12,000 just for housing. So if you look at here, it's just this 1/10 of it. So the quality of life, it is not only in those countries. So let's not create wrong narrative. That was my message.
Mm. Do you think it's creating a housing bubble in Nepal?
No. I already mentioned to you over the fragmented kind of. So when the bubble comes, is the like you take a example of Evergrande in China, because bubble happens and collapse happen when there is a huge investment and those companies are likely to fail.
Mhm.
In Nepal case, it is a retail kind of investment. The prices have gone up. They might come down, but it hardly matters. I bought a land site for 4 anna or something in 20 lakh rupees, and tomorrow it is 18. It hardly matters. Yes, I may have paid double the price it deserved, but I don't intend to sell it. It is not. There are very few people who are doing business in terms of this. So it is not the huge investment companies, banking investment, and once the sale stops, the economy is going to collapse. Yes, it will have an impact, but we are a very lazy country, I tell you. I told many of the policymakers, let's come up with the first time housing scheme. Let's not make it a very stringent housing loan, so that this much of a loanable money that is being parked in the banks can go to the market, and I will have a sense of having a residence of my own, and that will not default as well, and that will grease the economic wheel. But nobody is listening, and I'm just giving some examples how you can thinking of greasing the economy.
Do you think because a lot of people, what they do is buy the land and take loan from the bank and just double it in terms of their strategy, do you think that kind of giving loans to that sector would harm the economy?
Yeah, I think not only for the housing, the credit rating system, individual and corporate credit rating system is not in practice even today. All our banking investment is against the collateralized immobile asset, land or house. That is very pathetic, poor banking strategy. Not even a single modern economy happens that. If you have great ideas, if you have got a good banking record, you should be able to draw from the bank and pay it back. That is how the productive cycle starts to roll on. But we are very, very conservative. That is what hindering to bring about this new instrument policies related to new instruments. No bank is ready to lend you 20 lakh rupees without collateral even today, despite this startup loan or whatever. So our mindset needs to change. That is how and why we need to have the interaction, huge interaction with the international banking and finance community.
Abroad, you can probably get a loan by even showing your income, and a steady income will give you a loan. And do you think that might be possible here?
Yeah, it is only about your creativity in financial product development. So and identifying new sector. If you are a very good computer programmer, you could be a very good borrower. You don't have to have a huge building. One laptop should be enough for you to borrow and design the products.
Lastly, a last question to you. For example, Singapore has been able to do this, putting aside the geopolitics and just focusing on development. Do you think Nepal can do that in any way?
Two things. You mentioned somewhere about geopolitics and we didn't discuss. Let's accept the fact that we have the geopolitics. It is not about complaining. I hear a lot of stories. India did this, America did this. It is probably for what we did do. Where were we when all these people were doing these things? Means we didn't develop our core strength in dealing with geopolitics and diplomacy. That is, the question can directly be linked to your Singapore question and all. So why is diplomacy used? I receive on an average one ambassador in my office in Kathmandu University. Their whole idea is to say, our colleges teach better than you do. And I fight. I fight, literally. And that means they use their state and diplomatic apparatus to bring in students, to attract students their university systems. But we don't have policy. I request my ambassadors abroad, oh, it should come from foreign ministry, government, I don't know, government has a policy or not, or blah, blah kind of thing. And is it our job kind of thing? Forget education, even promoting economic diplomacy. I wonder how many of the economic students we appoint in this era in diplomatic positions. How many of them are fully conversant in articulating our interest, convincing the counterparty, convincing the private party to attract both investment, to aid, or even the tourists. So that is important. We need to have a very, very constructive, again, I am using this word maybe 100 times, capable diplomatic apparatus that has got the true passionate feeling about patriotism. As long as there are nation states with boundaries, there will be a necessity of patriotism, nationhood, and the national interest. So let's accept this fact. Okay, in maybe 1,000 years' time, there will be no state, will be completely international citizen. Nobody will stop from traveling anywhere, but that is not the case. So, and to come to your question in particular, I always, we may certainly learn from how the governance can work, the policies can work, but comparing the state management with Singapore or Bhutan or Luxembourg is not very realistic, I say. They are the city, small state. It is like, in that case, our Kathmandu is fine, and it is as many 3 times more of a Bhutan's population resides in Kathmandu Valley. It is well governed, if you say this is a country. So, but of course, we can learn from the good examples, but they are not perfect comparisons, I guess. So we have to design our own model. That is my emphasis. And we have not started even the basic homework to do that.
So, sir, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated your words, and a lot of people will kind of learn a lot about economics from this. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.